There are moments when you look into someone's eyes and feel that something invisible has shifted. She says everything is fine, her smile still appears, but something deeper tells you the connection isn't the same. It's not paranoia or insecurity, it's the silent change that often comes before emotional distance becomes betrayal. Many people have felt that unspoken gap, the space between what love used to feel like and what it feels like now. Today, we'll look at why that happens and how subtle emotional habits can reveal truths most people never see until it's too late. This isn't about blame or suspicion, it's about awareness, learning to recognize emotional shifts so you can protect your peace and make healthy choices. When someone begins to pull away, it rarely starts with a decision. It starts with feelings, often small and unspoken. Emotional disconnection grows quietly, and before you realize it, the energy between you has changed. Her tone, her laughter, the small things she used to share, suddenly they feel different. She's there, but not really there. Psychology calls this emotional transfer, the point when a person starts to invest their emotional energy elsewhere, sometimes without even realizing it. It doesn't always mean she's cheating physically. It may begin as an emotional drift, a shift of attention and intimacy that slowly pulls her heart in another direction. You notice she becomes a little less warm, a little less interested. The laughter that used to come easily now feels measured. When you talk, her body is present, but her eyes aren't. That quiet absence is a sign that her emotions are moving somewhere else. And while she might insist everything's fine, you can sense that something's been unplugged between you. It's painful because you can't point to a specific moment when it happened. It's more like watching light fade from a room you used to know by heart. In psychology, emotional withdrawal often begins as self-protection. When a person feels something changing inside them, whether curiosity about someone new, dissatisfaction, or confusion, they start to disconnect to reduce the discomfort of guilt or conflict. This withdrawal can show up as irritation at small things, a loss of patience, or a sudden lack of empathy. The same person who once cared deeply about your feelings now seems indifferent when you're hurt or stressed. It's not that she suddenly stopped caring about everything, it's that she's subconsciously distancing herself from the emotional bond she once had with you. This process can feel devastating if you're on the receiving end. You start second-guessing yourself. You wonder if you did something wrong or if you're imagining things. But emotional awareness teaches us something crucial. When someone's energy shifts, it's not always about your worth, it's about their internal conflict. Emotional betrayal often starts as avoidance, avoiding vulnerability, avoiding truth, avoiding guilt. And when that avoidance grows, so does defensiveness. Defensiveness is one of the most revealing emotional habits. When a woman begins living between two emotional worlds, one with you and one she's hiding, guilt becomes a heavy weight to carry. That guilt often disguises itself as anger or irritation. Suddenly, questions that used to be normal now sound like accusations to her. If you ask where she's been or why she didn't reply, she might react as if you've crossed a line. Her tone sharpens, her words turn defensive, and instead of simply answering, she starts over-explaining, giving too much detail that somehow feels rehearsed. This kind of overreaction isn't random, it's a psychological response to internal conflict. When someone feels guilty, they often project that guilt outward. She's not really angry that you asked. She's angry because deep down she's already asked herself the same question and didn't like the answer. That internal tension spills into her behavior. To protect herself, she may try to shift the focus away from her actions and onto you. She might accuse you of being controlling, insecure, or paranoid. This is called emotional deflection, a tactic that keeps you doubting yourself while she avoids accountability. It's not always conscious manipulation. Sometimes it's just how the mind tries to avoid facing guilt. Alongside defensiveness comes a new obsession with privacy. The phone that once lay carelessly on the table now never leaves her hand. She turns it face down, carries it everywhere, and reacts sharply if you even glance at it. What used to be openness turns into secrecy disguised as boundaries. You hear phrases like, "I just need my space," or "you don't trust me," but those words carry tension. They're less about independence and more about hiding. In healthy love, transparency feels natural. There's no need to guard ordinary things. But when guilt enters the picture, even simple curiosity feels threatening. That's when communication begins to collapse. Conversations become cautious, honesty feels dangerous, and you start choosing silence just to keep the peace. But silence is what allows deception to grow. In psychology, this dynamic is called emotional control by withdrawal, the act of managing a partner's reactions through unpredictability and defensiveness. It's how emotional distance turns into power. If you ever find yourself walking on eggshells around someone who once felt safe, pay attention. That tension isn't love evolving, it's connection eroding. True love invites honesty. Deceit hides behind defensiveness. And while it's painful to admit, A person who's always building invisible walls may already be preparing to leave emotionally, even if their body hasn't moved yet. The emotional roller coaster doesn't stop there. When guilt and desire collide inside someone, their behavior becomes unpredictable. One moment they're affectionate, almost overly so, and the next they're cold or irritated without reason. You start feeling like you're with two different people. This inconsistency isn't madness, it's chemistry. The brain, caught between excitement and guilt, releases conflicting hormones. Dopamine fuels pleasure and novelty, while cortisol triggers stress and fear. That chemical tug of war shows up in mood swings, erratic affection, and inconsistent attention. You might notice she becomes extra loving after being distant, or suddenly cold after moments of connection. It's confusing because there's no clear pattern. But psychology explains it as guilt management. When she feels guilty, she compensates with kindness. When the guilt fades or denial takes over, the coldness returns. It's not about you, it's her inner struggle projected outward. And here's the mistake most people make. They respond to the distance by chasing harder. You try to fix things, buy gifts, be extra patient, or ask repeatedly what's wrong. But the more you chase, the more control she feels. Instead of reconnecting, she withdraws further because deep down your kindness reminds her of what she's betraying. And that triggers even more guilt. Sometimes that guilt turns into conflict. She might start arguments that don't make sense, accuse you of things that never happened, or twist your words into reasons for her own frustration. This is emotional displacement, projecting inner turmoil onto external situations. By creating conflict, she distances herself from responsibility. It allows her to tell herself, we were already fighting, or he made me unhappy, rewriting the story so the betrayal feels justified later. If this sounds familiar, remember this. Emotional instability isn't always chaos. It's often confession. The inconsistency you feel is her subconscious revealing what she can't say out loud. And while it hurts to see someone change, awareness gives you clarity. Once you see emotional patterns for what they are, you stop taking them personally. You begin to recognize that sometimes, when love starts to fade, it doesn't mean you failed. It means truth is surfacing, one subtle habit at a time. As emotional unpredictability deepens, something else begins to take shape. Detachment disguised as independence. At first, it sounds healthy. She might say she's focusing on herself, working on personal growth, or needing space to recharge. Those phrases are valid in healthy relationships, but context matters. When independence becomes a shield rather than a balance, it often hides emotional withdrawal. You start to notice she's not just taking space to breathe, she's taking space to detach. She begins doing things alone that you used to share, watching your favorite show separately, skipping your evening talks, or making new plans without including you. She might dress differently, change her routine, or keep her schedule vague. You ask how her day was, and she answers, "It was fine." But the warmth that used to fill those words is gone. What's really happening is emotional relocation. She's mentally building a version of her life where you're no longer the center. Psychologists call this emotional migration, the process of leaving emotionally long before physically leaving. To cope with guilt, she convinces herself she's just growing. She frames her distance as evolution, as though independence means disconnection. She'll say things like, "I just want to rediscover myself," or "I've lost who I am." And while personal growth is beautiful, real growth doesn't erase connection, it strengthens it. What you're seeing isn't transformation, it's preparation. She's preparing for a future where she doesn't have to reconcile her betrayal with her image of herself. This emotional shift brings a strange calm. You might notice she seems happier, even peaceful. She smiles more, sings to herself, posts joyful pictures online. It looks like healing, but it's not. It's rehearsing. She's rehearsing a life that feels free of guilt, a version of herself unburdened by what she's hiding. That's why her peace feels distant. It's not shared with you, it's happening apart from you. During this stage, meaningful conversations start to vanish. When you try to talk about your feelings or the relationship, she avoids depth. She might say, "You're overthinking again," or "Can't we just enjoy the moment?" What she's really doing is avoiding accountability. Vulnerability feels dangerous because it would expose the emotional truth she's trying not to face. Instead of connecting, she stays on the surface, keeping things light, neutral, and emotionally safe. For her, not for you. And the more you try to reconnect, the further she floats away. It's painful to watch because it feels like you're losing someone in slow motion. But what's happening is psychological self-preservation. By becoming distant, she convinces herself that the bond is already broken. That way, when her actions eventually cross a line, she can say to herself, "It wasn't working anyway." She's rewriting the story before it ends. This brings us to one of the most subtle but telling emotional changes: empathy inconsistency. Empathy is the heartbeat of connection. When two people love each other, they mirror each other's emotions. They care deeply about each other's well being. But when someone starts to emotionally divide their attention, empathy becomes selective. You'll notice she can still show care, but it feels off. She says the right things, but they sound empty. Her tone lacks the tenderness you once knew. It's not that she's incapable of empathy, it's that her emotional energy is being redirected. When she's emotionally invested elsewhere, her compassion for you starts to fade. She may still act kind when it benefits her image, especially in public or around friends. But privately, she's distant. You'll see her comfort others with genuine warmth, yet respond to your pain with indifference or irritation. That's not exhaustion, it's emotional redirection. Her subconscious is protecting her double life by numbing the part of her that used to care most about your feelings. This selective empathy is often the hardest thing to process because it feels like you've lost not just her love, but her soul. You'll sense it in the smallest moments. You tell her you had a hard day and she barely reacts. You try to open up and she changes the subject. And it feels like talking to someone who's there but emotionally vacant. This emptiness isn't random, it's guilt disguised as detachment. Her mind tells her, if I stop caring, it won't hurt as much when this ends. What's confusing is that sometimes she'll swing the other way. She'll suddenly become affectionate, cooking your favorite meal or reminiscing about old memories. But that sudden kindness isn't always reconnection. It's compensation. It's her subconscious trying to balance guilt with good deeds, to make herself feel like she's still a kind partner even while hiding something painful. This pattern, cold one day, warm the next, isn't love rekindling. It's guilt management. When you're on the receiving end of this, your emotions start to fray. You begin doubting yourself. You wonder, am I too needy, too sensitive? Maybe it's all in my head. But inconsistency is not normal in emotional safety. Healthy love may have ups and downs, but it doesn't leave you confused or starved for clarity. If her empathy feels conditional or her warmth unpredictable, it's a sign her heart is divided. And here's the truth that sets you free. Her inconsistency isn't a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of her inner conflict. When someone can't reconcile who they are with what they're doing, they start fragmenting emotionally. You feel that fragmentation through mixed signals, one moment affection, the next dismissal. It's not about you being unlovable, it's about her being unable to face her truth. Eventually, as this emotional fracture deepens, a new pattern emerges, narrative rewriting. It's subtle at first. You'll hear her say things like, we've been unhappy for a while, or you never really understood me. At first, these statements confuse you because they don't match your reality. You remember laughter, connection, shared moments of love. But she's no longer describing your shared past. She's describing the version she needs to believe in to justify her emotional detachment. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance reduction. When someone's actions don't align with their self-image, they rewrite the story to feel morally right. She doesn't want to see herself as the one causing pain, so she reframes the relationship as already broken. That mental rewrite protects her ego but distorts your shared truth. She starts highlighting every argument, every bad day, as proof that the relationship was doomed all along. Meanwhile, the good times fade from her narrative. You'll notice it in her language. She stops using we and starts saying I. Phrases like, we need to fix this, become I need to find myself. This shift signals emotional separation. She's no longer speaking as part of a team, she's preparing to stand alone. And when you remind her of the beautiful moments you shared, she dismisses them as different times or not real. It's painful to hear, but it's her way of closing the emotional door before physically walking away. When someone starts rewriting the relationship narrative, they're not only changing the story for you, they're rewriting it for themselves. It's a form of psychological survival. No one wants to think of themselves as unfaithful or dishonest. So instead of facing guilt head on, the mind reconstructs the past to make the present feel justified. Every forgotten call becomes evidence of neglect, every disagreement, proof of incompatibility. It's a slow erosion of shared memory, and it leaves you questioning what was ever real. But here's what you need to remember. This rewriting is not a reflection of truth. It's a coping mechanism. People rewrite their stories when they can't live with the discomfort of contradiction. So, if she suddenly begins describing your relationship as broken long before it actually was, she's not describing your shared experience. She's describing the version of events that lets her live with her choices. As painful as this process is to witness, it's also where your strength begins. Awareness gives you freedom. Once you understand these patterns, micro-withdrawal, defensiveness, emotional chaos, detachment disguised as independence, inconsistent empathy, and narrative rewriting, you stop chasing clarity from someone who's already lost their own. You stop seeking closure from words built on self-deception. Instead, you begin focusing on your own emotional health, your own stability, your own truth. Because betrayal, whether emotional or physical, doesn't just end love. It tests your ability to love yourself. It's not about punishment or revenge. It's about reclaiming your emotional balance and refusing to let someone else's confusion distort your peace. Healing starts when you choose to see things clearly, without anger, without denial. It's not easy, but it's the foundation of strength. If you've ever experienced these signs, the slow withdrawal, the defensive reactions, the sudden distance that doesn't make sense, understand this: you are not imagining it. Emotional energy speaks before words ever do. Humans are wired to feel connection, and when that connection shifts, your body knows. That quiet unease you feel in your chest isn't insecurity, it's intuition. The more you learn to trust it, the less likely you are to stay in situations where your soul is being quietly neglected. And while it's natural to want answers, the truth is that closure rarely comes from the other person. Real closure comes from acceptance. It comes from saying, "This is what happened. It's painful, but it's not the end of me." In that acceptance lies power, the kind that no betrayal can take away. Because what truly defines you is not who hurt you, but how you rise afterward. Many people underestimate the psychological toll of being in a one-sided emotional relationship. The stress, the confusion, the constant overthinking, it all takes a toll on your mental health. Studies in emotional psychology show that uncertainty activates the same stress centers in the brain as physical pain. That's why heartbreak feels so heavy in your body. It's not metaphorical, it's biological. Your nervous system is reacting to loss, to inconsistency, to the disappearance of safety. That's also why self-care during these periods isn't optional. It's essential. It's not just about distraction or keeping busy. It's about calming your nervous system, reestablishing routine, and reminding yourself that stability still exists, even when love doesn't. Small, consistent acts, sleeping enough, moving your body, journaling, talking with trusted friends, help retrain your brain to feel safe again. Healing isn't about forgetting someone, it's about reconnecting to yourself. When a person's empathy fades, when their words stop matching their actions, it can shake your belief in love itself. But remember, love didn't fail you, deception did. And deception is never about you being unworthy. It's about the other person being unable to live with truth. Understanding that distinction is the key to emotional recovery. Because once you separate your value from someone else's behavior, you start to rebuild confidence from the inside out. Eventually, clarity replaces confusion. You start seeing patterns for what they are, psychological reactions, not mysteries. You stop trying to interpret mixed signals because you realize that honesty doesn't need decoding. And in that moment, something powerful happens. Peace replaces panic. You no longer chase explanations, you protect your energy instead. The journey from betrayal to peace is not instant. It's gradual, like learning to walk again after losing balance. There will be moments when you still miss the good parts, when nostalgia tricks you into remembering only the warmth. But healing means allowing yourself to grieve what was real while accepting what is true. It means knowing that your capacity to love deeply isn't a weakness, it's proof of your humanity. In time, you'll begin to thank yourself for seeing clearly. Because awareness once gained never leaves you. You'll start recognizing emotional honesty faster, valuing consistency over charm and peace over excitement. You'll learn that love isn't about constant intensity, it's about safety, empathy, and mutual respect. If you've seen these emotional habits in someone you love, let that awareness empower you, not harden you. Pain can teach, but it doesn't have to define. The goal isn't to distrust love, it's to discern it. The next time someone looks you in the eyes, you'll know how to feel not just what they say, but the energy behind their words. And that's the deepest kind of protection, emotional intelligence rooted in truth. Because once you learn to read behavior instead of promises, once you understand emotional honesty instead of chasing empty reassurance, you stop being fooled by performance. You begin living aligned with your intuition. That's not cynicism, it's wisdom. So if you've ever been blindsided by someone's betrayal, take this as your moment of clarity. The pain you feel now is not punishment, it's awakening. You're learning to see beyond charm, beyond routine, into the emotional truth that defines real connection. Love, when genuine, doesn't hide, doesn't confuse, and doesn't rewrite history. It shows up consistently with empathy and truth. Protect your peace. Honor your intuition. Remember that your sensitivity to emotional energy is not a flaw, it's your greatest strength. Because once you can read the emotional language behind someone's actions, you'll never again be fooled by words that sound like love but move like deception. You'll recognize authenticity by its calmness, loyalty by its consistency, and love by its honesty. And from that moment on, you'll no longer chase understanding from those who betrayed it. You'll stand firmly in your own. Because awareness is liberation, and peace is the final victory.